Hey guys, welcome back. Artist Cycling, and surprise, we're actually doing cycling. Well, sort of, kind of. So this is back into the laying out of a new piece. This one inspired by one of the paintings by Degas, one of his horse race paintings. I think this is called At the Races, before the race. But of course, me being me, I thought I'd turn it into cyclists. Whether before the race or before the ride, I have done paintings like, I have one that's called Saddle Up, which is since sold, but where it's that, everybody yakking before you start the group ride. So this is sort of that, or before the gravel ride, because this will be as the Degas is on the grasses. But so you can see as I get this laid out and started interpreting, making corrections, so the orange lines are correcting the yellow. And in the original Degas, and I'm sorry this is kind of out of frame, I'm really good at doing that, sorry about that folks, but there are riders, and there are actually some in the Degas piece that are particularly far in the distance. And my work, I usually keep everything close in, maybe because, I'm a city dweller. And so there's always things around. I mean, I have a fair amount of space, but we tried living in a small town and discovered rather quickly that we are urbanist. Even if I do love getting out on long bike rides in the country, which of course fortunate to have that where I live. I mean, 20 minutes into my bike ride, and there's share the road signs that don't have bicycles on them but have tractors. So here I'm opening another of the oil sticks, and of course I have multi-generations of these, so that's quite an old form of packaging. And you can see I'm struggling to get it started. Well, you can't see because my back's in the way. But that was some of the dioxazine purple, and now laying in a little bit of white over that. And then, I believe I'm looking for the alizarin crimson, yes. So what I'm doing is, of course, preparing for the black shorts. So I'm laying in some colors and some highlight areas, and now I'll take the phthalo blue, and see by picking up some of that purpley white, getting a bit of a highlight. And then, of course, where that alizarin crimson is, it's quite dark. You can see how it's almost black. And, of course, that's the inner thigh that's also hidden. But, we got to catch the back of the thigh there. And the curvature of the leg. And now I'll just soften that bit of the white, blend it a little bit, because I only wanted just a teeny bit of highlight there. And now we'll do the next leg, again, the alizarin crimson, to get the really dark areas. Bit of white just on the hip bone and the front part of the thigh. And what you can't see is I'm layering in the alizarin crimson. I don't think I'll do this camera angle again. What do you think? Silly me, I thought, move over to the left-hand side and you'd see more of the right. Peekaboo. So a little bit more alizarin crimson, just so I can get this cycling short nice and dark. When I'm doing these videos, I just set the camera up, and then, quite honestly, I forget about it. So, and this is the thing where, so the older oil sticks, you can see I'm actually picking away some of the dried or congealed oil sticks so I get a smoother application. And with some of these older ones, that's a bigger issue, but even still, you get this little dried skin, which is how the painting dries in real time as well. And that skin forms over the painting. Which is one reason, like, I never use any sort of varnish like a traditional oil painting, partially because they always discolor the paintings, and over time, that what's the right word, oxidizes,
Okay, hi, Bippy.
and yellows. And obviously, I don't want yellow paper, yellow painting. Although lately, trying to photograph the work, and I just can't edit out the yellowness. By the way, this T-shirt says "Ride Bikes, Smash Racism." It's from my local bike shop, Outpost. Back in 2020, when businesses were boarding up windows as the protests around um, George Floyd, it got a little violent, and so many stores covered up their windows, and these guys, that's what they painted on their plywood, was that expression. And then I think they went, we should make a T-shirt, and it always gets interesting remarks, and people are always like, well, what does it mean? I'm like, well, it's two things I like to do or want to see happen. I want to ride bikes and I want to smash racism. So I'm just working through the hands now. Yeah, that was our sidebar. Yeah, I got to stop and let the dog in. I'll be right back. So, of course, moving on to the next set of shorts, again, the alizarin crimson. And the bike shorts, I am kind of jumping around on this painting, as you'll see when I go into the time-lapse video in just a little bit here. But that being said, I'm also like the black shorts of the cyclists and the wheels of the bikes are going to set up a rhythm within the painting, like Degas uses the horses. There's a similar repeat color that kind of holds the painting together. And so these are all the things that one needs to think about. And I mean, oftentimes they're unconscious decisions, but it's, building a painting is a thing, and notice the word I'm using, building. It's like, what am I trying to do visually? What am I trying to do creatively? Is there a statement? And certainly in some paintings, there's very much a statement. This one, not so much. This one kind of is, come on, guys. We're here to ride. Let's ride. I haven't done a group ride since COVID. I do enjoy it. It's camaraderie, but I know I said that wrong. But I do enjoy being out alone, riding my own thoughts. I do come up with some of these paintings while I'm out riding. And I've always worked on the idea that if it's a good enough idea, I'll remember it. That usually is the case. So this guy is straddling his bike, the wheels cocked a little bit, and he's looking back at us, the viewer, or perhaps looking at the guy who seems to be fiddling with his chain. And that is actually based on a watercolor I did during the tour when Tadej Pogačar crashed right near the finish line, and he was up, and he got really lucky. Raised his head just in time as he slid and didn't hit his head against the curb. But he jumped up and quickly got his derailleur back in position and chain back on the cassette. Was back up and caught back up to the leaders he had been with. So I ended up losing no time on the stage, but it's also a tradition to wait for the race leader. Not that he was a leader at that point, but so they didn't have to wait for him. But there is an etiquette in cycling. It's waning a bit. There are no real patrons of cycling anymore. So this is now, again, working on these wheels. And they're very much going to become a motif, a reoccurring motif, a rhythmic pattern that'll fit into the painting. And hopefully hold the whole image together. So think of music. It's like you have this underlying rhythmic pattern, and then on top of it, the melody is free to go wherever. And also, think about certainly contemporary songs where you come back and do a chorus. So moving forward now, just into time lapse. I know I don't have much time, so if you enjoy the video, I'd love a thumbs up. I'd love to know what you think. Are you a cyclist yourself? What do you think of group rides? What do you think of oil sticks? So, and of course, if you follow, you'll get to see this painting as it matures. Is that the right word? Moves towards being finished. And you can find all of my work at greigleach.com. And I'll put that link, but it's also in the on this page header. So thanks for taking the time to watch. I do appreciate it.